India versus Pakistan, a rivalry like no other, especially on the cricket field. It's a pity that the two countries do not have any bilateral cricketing ties between them since 2013. As I narrate this story to you, we are in a situation where we don't know whether India will be traveling to Pakistan to play in the Champions Trophy scheduled to be held in February of 2025. But in today's story, I will take you to February, but the February of 1987. Quite often, whenever you talk about India-Pakistan relations, many feel that sport can be a tool to ensure that there is peace between the two countries. There are people who believe in this theory. There are others who feel that sport and politics and the tension that is there between the two countries cannot go hand in hand. However, in the past, cricket diplomacy has been noticed when it comes to India-Pakistan relations, and it has played an important role in how the narrative or the history of the two countries have shaped up. In today's story, I'm going to tell you where did the word cricket diplomacy originate from? What is the genesis of that word? And that is why I'll take you back to 1987. In fact, a few months before that, in 1986, the Indian Army conducted an exercise known as Brass Tacks. It became very famous. It involved the movement of about 500,000 troops, about 5 lakh troops, which according to many agencies across the world at that time was even bigger than a NATO movement. So it was considered the biggest military exercise at that time. 5 lakh men at that time meant almost half of Indian Army was involved in this exercise on the Pakistan border in the state of Rajasthan. Now, whenever there's an exercise as big as this was, it does raise alarms in the neighboring country. However, when foreign countries which noticed this sort of movement questioned the Indian government, they said, no, this is a regular military exercise and we have no plans of going to war. However, things began to change a little later, down a few months. The exercise continued in Rajasthan, but then you saw movement of troops in the Punjab region as well as Kashmir as well, and that's where fears of an India attack began to grow, and not just in Pakistan but globally as well. The final nail in the coffin that almost confirmed that India was on the verge of a military attack on Pakistan was a letter that was sent by the American president at the time, Ronald Reagan. He sent an official letter to the president of Pakistan at that time, Zia-ul-Haq, saying that they believe, their intelligence told them that the Indian side is planning an attack on Pakistan's nuclear facilities. At this time, both countries are not official nuclear powers, but they have nuclear weapon sites. And so Zia-ul-Haq is told by USA, which was an ally of Pakistan at that time, that India is planning an attack on their nuclear sites with support from Israel, much like how around the same time Israel had attacked Iraq's nuclear sites. So based on that, with Israeli help, India is planning a similar attack on Pakistan's nuclear sites, and India is actually preparing for a full-fledged war with Pakistan. Now at this point, with the amount of troops that were there on the border, Pakistan clearly sensed danger, and that's where the president of Pakistan, Zia-ul-Haq, used cricket as a diplomatic tool. What he did was land up in Jaipur. At that very moment, there was a test series happening between India and Pakistan, and he landed up in Jaipur with an excuse of watching the India-Pakistan test match. His motive was something else, but he said that he wanted to watch that India-Pakistan test match. He had been invited by the BCCI as his courtesy to invite the head of a state that's participating in a series to come and watch that particular series, but that invite had gone many days ago. But once he got that official communication from the US of A, he landed up in Jaipur at a very short notice. This made the Indian government very uncomfortable. under Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi at that time, and there are good sources to suggest, if you were to read reports at that time, that the Indian government wasn't happy with Zia-ul-Haq just landing up. It made Rajiv Gandhi very uncomfortable, probably because of what India were planning, and this was not the right time for the head of the state of the country that you're going to be going to war with, him landing up in India. But it bore fruit for Pakistan. It landed up in Jaipur. Then the Indian Prime Minister had no option but to meet his counterpart from Pakistan. And after that test match, there was a meeting organized in New Delhi between President Zia-ul-Haq and Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi that took place in the Hyderabad house in the Indian capital, New Delhi. At that time, nobody really knows what the conversation was, but apparently it is reported on many accounts that Zia-ul-Haq spoke about that. I know that India is planning to attack Pakistan, but remember, this could be a misadventure as well, because this could then escalate into a nuclear war, and he then pressed on the Indian side to do a double think. And eventually, if you look at it from Pakistan's point of view, the visit did bear fruits for the Pakistan side, because eventually India then decided at the 11th hour to not engage in that war that they had been planning. But there was also an agreement signed, after which the tensions were brought down, that both sides will de-escalate, remove a lot of troops. Kashmir was the center of attention at that time, the core issue why India was planning on attacking Pakistan. So they both agreed to de-escalate. About 150,000 soldiers were asked to move back from the border areas in Kashmir, and a war was averted. So cricket diplomacy, this is another example of cricket. In fact, as I mentioned right at the start, this is where the word cricket diplomacy was born. General Zia-ul-Haq actually later mentioned, he spoke to the Indian press freely. If you were to read reports at that time, his intelligence wasn't keen that the Pakistani president speak to the Indian press, but he went out of his way, spoke to them on regular occasions during his trip here, and then coined this word cricket diplomacy. That did help in de-escalating tensions at that time, but as things stand right now, it's been more than a decade that India and Pakistan have engaged in bilateral cricket. Cricket diplomacy may have worked then, but it is surely not working in the present day and age. Do give us a like if you enjoyed this story. You are watching another episode of Sport Tales with me, nikhilnaz, and as always, don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today for more such content.